anybody. Hopefully we're in the middle of this excitement.
Your Excellency, High Commissioner Pillay, Madam President of the Assembly of States Parties, Ambassador Korach, Mr. President, Your Honors, Madam Prosecutor, Mr. Registrar, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the event celebrating International Criminal Justice Day.
Madam High Commissioner, Mr. President, Madam Prosecutor, Mr. Registrar, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this year is the third time that we celebrate 17th of July as the International Criminal Justice Day. And as you remember, at the review conference of the Rome Statute in Kampala, the states parties adopted by consensus the Kampala Declaration, by which states reaffirmed their commitment to the Rome Statute and its full implementation, as well as to its universality and integrity. And also by the same declaration, we all decided to celebrate 17th of July as Day of International Criminal Justice. Unfortunately, heinous crimes are still taking place in the world, and this is an opportune moment now to renew our commitment to eradicating the scourge of the most serious crimes that shock the conscience of mankind. I would like to take this opportunity to call upon states parties to reaffirm their support to the court and to the Rome Statute system by formulating pledges and engaging their governments in placing a significant national focus on the celebration of this day. Also, states should be issuing high-level statements and press releases, as well as organizing symbolic events. I would also use this opportunity to call upon states parties to continue day-to-day practical cooperation with the court to ensure its success in delivering justice. And it is my great pleasure today to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Navi Pillay, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. I would like to thank Ms. Pillay for accepting the invitation to deliver the keynote address at today's celebration. Ms. Pillay has been a vocal supporter of human rights in general and of international justice in particular for a very long time, in her positions of the judge and president of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and one of the first judges of the International Criminal Court. She helped to put in place the founding stones of the system of international criminal justice as we know it today. I would also thank the registry and the court and the Secretariat of the Assembly of States Parties for organizing this celebration and for providing us with an opportunity to once again convey a strong message to the international community to further strengthen its efforts to ensure that the most heinous crimes are investigated and justice is brought to the victims. The Day of International Criminal Justice is a perfect occasion to celebrate the growing ICC family. You know that we are 122 right now, and to demonstrate that the commitment to the fight against impunity is stronger than ever. Thank you very much.
It's a great honor to have an opportunity to address you today in my new capacity of the facilitator of the Hague Working Group of the Bureau on Strategic Planning. Today we commemorate the adoption of the Rome Statute on 17 July 1998, which was a historic achievement that established the Permanent International Criminal Court. It was a clear demonstration of the shared goal of the international community to put an end to impunity for the perpetrators of the most serious crimes of international concern: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and aggression. Since its establishment, the International Criminal Court has continuously strengthened its central role in the system of international criminal justice, and nowadays stands firm as depository of our hope for the common future of peace, security, and well-being. While the strategic plan is a process entirely under the responsibility of the Court, the Assembly has demonstrated over the years a continuous interest in and support for the Court's strategic planning process and its implementation. In 2006, the Court adopted its first strategic plan, providing a common framework for the Court's activities over the next 10 years, with particular emphasis on 3 immediate years. After consultations with state parties and civil society organizations, and on the basis of its experience, the Court periodically reviews its strategic plan and strategic objectives, with the latest plan covering period 2013 to 2017. The Court has continued putting its activities in the context of the annual, mid- and long-term objectives to be achieved by 2017. At the 11th session, the Assembly welcomed review of the strategic plan for 2013 to 2017, with the year 2013 being a transitional year. The aim of the strategic planning facilitation is to conduct a dialogue with the Court, with a view to giving state parties an opportunity to comment on the activities and provide the input to the Court, as well as to enable state parties to stay abreast of the developments in the strategic planning process. Taking into account some of the priorities that have been identified during previous consultations, some that are coming out of the current developments, and some that are permanent challenge, such as the alignment of the annual budget with the strategic plan, which is crucial for the credibility and sustainability of the longer-term strategic approach, we would make all our efforts to continue consultations on interface between the budget and the new strategic orientation in the future. The Day of International Criminal Justice is a great opportunity to emphasize our common responsibility of the Court, state parties, and civil society in promoting the fight against impunity, the Rome Statute, and its implementation. On this occasion, I wish to encourage all stakeholders to continue undertaking further activities to promote awareness of the importance of the Court, its mandate, and its global role. I would also like to stress the significance of cooperation with the Court in order to assist it to achieve its historic mission. At the end, please allow me to wish us all a successful day of international criminal justice. Thank you.
I'm really very happy to join you here today. 15 years ago, on 17th July 1998, the international community came together to resolutely counteract impunity for international crimes through a new system of global justice. It was on this day that for the first time in history, states created a permanent international criminal court with a broad and potentially universal jurisdiction to try the perpetrators of the most heinous crimes known to the international community. In celebrating this historic milestone today, allow me to commemorate these efforts, to step back and recognize the progress made so far, and also to recognize the challenges that lie ahead. International criminal justice has grown from an idea into reality. Clearly, international criminal justice is a reality. Here in The Hague, a city often called the justice capital of the world, The Hague is host to several international criminal jurisdictions, including the United Nations Criminal Tribunals for the former Yugoslavia and the appeals chamber of the Rwanda Tribunal. The city is also the home of the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, of hearings of the Special Court for Sierra Leone, and of course the International Criminal Court. But international criminal justice has also become a reality in many other parts of the world. In Sierra Leone and in Lebanon, in all the territories of the former Yugoslavia, and in Rwanda, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Uganda, the Central African Republic, in Kenya, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali and Libya, to name just a few. International criminal justice is in action today, here in this city and elsewhere across the world, thanks to several decades of development and evolution. First, in the 1940s, the international military tribunals of Nuremberg and Tokyo established the concept of individual criminal responsibility at the international level and established that no individual is above the law. Then in the early 1990s, the United Nations Security Council established the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. These ad hoc tribunals, as well as the special courts created in Sierra Leone and Cambodia, have, through their painstaking work, demonstrated that justice can be delivered at the international level. These jurisdictions play a key part in turning the idea of a permanent international criminal court into a reality. Created by the Rome Statute of 1998, the ICC, the first permanent international court, is the culmination of the determined efforts of many individuals and states to help ensure accountability for the worst crimes known to humankind: war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Just a week ago, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action, which established my office. And a key achievement of that conference in 1993 was the civil society push for the establishment of the International Criminal Court. So in all the speeches at Vienna just 2 weeks ago, the ICC was also celebrated. The ICC is clearly a milestone achievement in our efforts to create a world where the protection afforded by international human rights and international humanitarian law is granted to every individual. After 11 years of existence, the ICC is to be commended for its efforts and for its achievements. I would like to highlight 3 of these achievements in particular. Firstly, the ICC has undertaken a substantial workload. To date, 18 cases in 9 situations have been brought before it. The court has issued 23 arrest warrants and 9 summonses to appear. All the summonses have been voluntarily executed and 5 arrests have been made. Recently, after living as a fugitive for 6 years, 1 individual voluntarily surrendered to the ICC. However, 12 suspects still remain at large. I therefore call on all states and relevant entities to increase their efforts to ensure that all fugitives are promptly brought before the ICC. The second success I would mention is that victims now have a voice in the international criminal legal system. I applaud the fact that the Rome Statute and the practice of the ICC decisively place victims of serious human rights abuses and international crimes at the center of the international criminal justice system. Yes, the victims of international crimes have rights too. The right to justice, the right to truth, the right to remedy, and the right to reparation. The recognition of the rights of victims must remain a fundamental part of the fight against impunity at the international level. The ICC's third great success, in my view, is the palpable impact of the Rome Statute at the national level. To implement the Rome Statute and enable cooperation with the ICC, many states around the world have adopted new laws or have adjusted their constitutions. More than 55 states have already adopted new legislation in this regard, and draft laws are pending in about 40 further states. These constitutional and legislative changes demonstrate that the ICC's work has a snowball effect, building an even greater momentum to erode impunity for grave human rights violations and other international crimes. It is my hope that these changes will eventually lead to the systematic criminalization of these crimes across the globe. Indeed, one of the noteworthy features of the system established by the Rome Statute is its emphasis on the responsibility of states themselves to deliver justice. Through the complementarity principle and by incentivizing trials at national level, the ICC can be a catalyst for greater accountability and serve as an additional and vitally important layer of justice at the global level when the primary layer of responsibility at national level fails to function. In this vein, I would like to once again call on all states to ratify the Rome Statute and to adopt implementing legislation. Let me now share some remarks about the ICC and the United Nations. The UN is tasked with establishing a more secure, just, and prosperous world. This mandate closely converges with the ICC's. My specific mandate as the High Commissioner of Human Rights is to promote and protect the enjoyment and full realization by all people of all the rights established in the Charter of the United Nations and in international human rights laws and treaties. My mandate thus has clear synergies with the aims of international criminal justice as we seek to create a global environment that respects the rights of victims of gross human rights violations and other international crimes and delivers justice. In this context, my office seeks to strengthen and streamline the fight against impunity at all levels and to ensure that the rights of victims are upheld. Specifically, OHCHR assists states in fulfilling their obligations under the international human rights instruments. We provide assistance to strengthen the capacity of civil society organizations to claim human rights, and we monitor and publicly report violations. By seeking to prevent and redress human rights violations, OHCHR through our field offices and as part of peacekeeping missions also helps states to develop and monitor their own long-term national capacities to address human rights issues and to ensure justice and accountability. Among the current challenges confronting international criminal justice in general and the ICC in particular, four appear particularly significant to me. The first challenge is that international criminal jurisdictions are dependent on states and international organizations for the fulfillment of their mandates. We know that international criminal courts and tribunals have no independent enforcement powers, and so they must rely on the cooperation of states and international organizations for a range of critical acts, from the arrest and surrender of suspects and accused persons to the protection of witnesses. It is essential, therefore, that states parties, as well as other entities critical to the proper functioning of the ICC, recognize their responsibilities and obligations. State parties must more fully and systematically support international criminal jurisdictions, notably the ICC, in fulfilling their mandates. The second challenge is the continued importance for the international criminal justice system to categorically address sexual crimes in war and peace times and the gender discrimination that underlies them, with particular focus on crimes committed against women and girls. Far too often the victims of sexual crimes are denied justice. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda for her commitment to address these specific issues while continuing to investigate tirelessly all the other crimes within her mandate. The third challenge of great importance is the international criminal prosecution of persons bearing the greatest responsibility. Ever since the Nuremberg and Tokyo tribunals, the world has expected international criminal jurisdictions, including the ICC, to focus on the leaders or architects responsible for international crimes. Too often these perpetrators remain beyond the reach of domestic courts. They are and must remain the obvious focus of attention of all international criminal jurisdiction. And this focus is crucial for the ICC and other international courts to effectively fight impunity and to optimize the use of resources. The trials of these leaders, watched by the world, can serve as an important deterrent to future abuses of power in all countries. Furthermore, the trials of the leaders responsible for heinous crimes that have affected very large numbers of victims also enable more victims to benefit from justice and redress. The fourth challenge is the assertion of independence, impartiality, and credibility, which is at the heart of the legitimacy of international criminal justice. International criminal jurisdictions, and in particular the ICC, because of its wide reach, are always at risk of being criticized as selective. It is therefore imperative that we remain faithful to the Rome Statute and redouble efforts to ensure that our jurisdictions are not only fair, impartial, and independent, but also perceived as such. The credibility and legitimacy of the international criminal courts and tribunals rely particularly on the sophistication and on the consistency of their jurisprudence. Despite the lack of enforcement powers and the limited resources, international criminal jurisdictions are trusted by many ordinary people across the world because they believe in their professionalism, credibility, fairness, impartiality, and independence. So let us carefully preserve these attributes. And I do want to emphasize that as I travel around the world to many countries and meet with civil society, ordinary people, they all have great hopes that their countries, if they have not, that they will ratify the Rome Statute. So they do look to the ICC as the final deliverer of justice for them. So to conclude, I will cite Nelson Mandela: things always seem impossible until you do them. Making the impossible possible is what international criminal justice is about. Not so long ago, the creation of a permanent international criminal court seemed impossible. Now that the court is here and here to stay, many of the challenges it faces in turn seem impossible to resolve. Yet with our combined strength, we can ensure the ICC will surmount them. Today, let us relish this anniversary as the symbol of humanity's aspiration and progress towards justice. We are morally obliged to continue work towards a more just and peaceful future on behalf of our children and subsequent generations. We can and we must move away from a culture of impunity for gross human rights violations and other international crimes towards a culture of accountability and responsibility. And this is possible. Thank you very much for your attention.
We will now continue with a musical performance by Dr. Eugenio Matos and Mr. Vladan Kulisic.
an honor for me to close today's wonderful ceremony marking the 3rd Annual International Criminal Justice Day of July the 17th and the 15th anniversary of the Rome Statute. The proceedings of this afternoon have been symbolic of the solidarity, compassion, determination, and knowledge necessary to build a global culture of justice. I would like to thank my colleague and friend Navi Pillay for her truly inspiring speech and for all the invaluable work she does as the UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights. I would also like to express my gratitude to Ambassador Korac of Croatia for her thoughtful remarks, as well as for taking up the role of facilitator for strategic planning in the Hague Working Group. This is very much appreciated by the court. The wonderful musical performance by Dr. Eugenio Matos, Minister Counselor of the Dominican Republic Embassy, together with Mr. Vladan Kulisic, has only added to the significance of this important day. President Entleman, I congratulate you for convening this event. And I thank you and indeed all the states parties for the continuous support you extend to the court. I also thank the Hague Institute for Global Justice for generously providing the venue for today's ceremony. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the story of the ICC shows how passionate individuals around the world, as well as sovereign nations, are about international justice. In less than 2 decades, the ICC has grown from a compelling idea to a global institution supported by an assembly of 122 nation states. Through the principle of complementarity and international cooperation, the Rome Statute has become a leading paradigm for global justice. During my presidency of the ICC, I have had the occasion to meet with government representatives and members of civil society from across the world, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Europe. In the course of those meetings, it has become clear that the Rome Statute, with its preamble stressing our common bonds and shared heritage, is a document that cuts across culture, language, and nationality. This common bond and shared heritage are also found in the diversity of human beings who form the ICC staff and make the organization function on a daily basis. I'm immensely proud to be the president of a court that brings together so many different persons, women and men, from almost 100 nations from all parts of the world, experienced professionals as well as young people just embarking on their careers, all working together under the guiding principles of fairness and justice for victims and perpetrators alike. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, while today has offered us a moment to reflect on the progress of international justice, we must do so keeping in mind our ultimate goal of securing safer future for humanity. Injustice lingers. Persons suspected of heinous crimes remain at large, and victims continue to suffer from incomprehensible acts of violence. The mass of inhumanity must be countered by courage, responsibility, and unwavering persistence. Strengthened national judiciaries, sustained cooperation of states, and new ratifications of the Rome Statute are all needed to increase the reach of international justice and to reduce the space for impunity. This is the global culture of justice that we must create, one that the ICC and the distinguished speakers we have heard today are helping us to attain. The price of the acts listed in the Rome Statute is so high and their impact so detrimental that all must be done to suppress them. For the sake of the future, for the sake of all those who have suffered at the hands of injustice, we must persevere. In honor of victims everywhere, I am proud to join with all people working for justice, accountability, and peace worldwide as we celebrate the Day of International Criminal Justice on the 17th of July, 2013. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the official part of this ceremony, and you are kindly invited to reception in the garden. Thank you.
Up until last year, all that we did is to hoist the ICC flag in front of the building, and that was it. And thanks to you,
Thanks to you. Thanks to you.
It's busy. It's simply busy.